Okay, go ahead and open your vocabulary notebook to the same page with all of your mysteries vocabulary because we're adding it to the mysteries list.
That's the first page.
Yep. So you're not starting a new page, you're adding it to the words we already have. So that means draw a line underneath word number
11.
Number 11. Draw a squiggly line underneath word number 11. Write today's date, August 20th, 2020. And then on the left side of the pink line, you can put number 12. So imagine this is the pink line. And then on the right, you'll write the word. Yes, Kingston. Well, go to the back and just start. If you ran out of space, then okay. You'll go to the back and you'll just write today's date and then
Miss
number 12.
Wallace,
Yes.
Carla has a question.
Okay, Carla, what's your question?
My question is, how many vocabulary words are we gonna have?
We'll have 4 new ones today.
Okay.
So we're going to have 4 new words today. We're starting with number 12. Number 12 is the term scientific method. Scientific method. It is spelled SCIENTIFIC, then a space, and then a new word, METHOD. Scientific method. It is a 2-word vocabulary term. The scientific method is a noun. And it is a tool that scientists use to find answers to questions. So the scientific method is a noun, and it is a tool that scientists use to find answers for questions. And when I say it's a tool, it's not a physical tool. It's just a list of steps to follow in order to find the answer to questions. When you get to middle school, you'll learn a lot more about the scientific method, especially once you get to the science fair.
Science fair?
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't really need to talk about it right now because it's not part of reading, and you don't have to worry about it for at least another year.
Okay.
Kingston, go quickly because I gotta move on. Okay, number 13 is the word secure. The word is secure. S-E-C-U-R-E. Make sure you are spelling these words correctly, especially the vocabulary word, because on your vocabulary homework, some of you may have noticed, if you spell a vocabulary word incorrectly, you lose a point, or you lose half a point, because part of it is that you can look at it and spell it correctly. You don't need to memorize the spelling, but you need to be able, when you write it, to spell it correctly. Kingston, you have to move quick because we can't wait for you, and you have cards to do tonight. The word secure is a verb. It can be used in different ways. The way that we will see it today, it will be used as a verb, which is an action. And it means to close an area off in order to preserve it. So if you secure something, you are closing that area off in order to preserve what's there. So at a crime scene, the detectives may secure the area in order to preserve or save possible evidence. At a national park, rangers may secure an area in order to preserve plant or animal life, which preserve also means save, to save or preserve animal life in that area, or plant life. So that is secure. Number 14 is the word survey. Survey is another word that has multiple meanings, but in this case, it is another verb or action. Sorry, survey is spelled S-U-R-V-E-Y. Survey. And it is a verb. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a noun. So erase verb, it is a noun because that is one of the other meanings. If you're using it as a verb, it means you are doing what I'm about to tell you. And it is a careful inspection of a place. It's a noun, and it is a careful inspection of a place. So if you complete a survey, it means that you have made a careful inspection of a place. Last word, and then I'll give you a minute. Number 15 is the word testify. Testify. It is spelled T-E-S-T-I-F-Y. Testify is a verb or an action. It means to make an official statement. To make an official statement about what you know. So to testify is to make an official statement about what you know. And now I will give you about 2 minutes to make sure you have all of these definitions. Okay, so you should have your textbook open to page 38. And we're going to start by reading the genre of this passage. Ethan, what is the genre of what we're going to read today? Nope, that's not the genre. Where do we find the genre? Pull your mask down while you read. So those of you at home, if you can't hear, we're just reading the genre on the bookmark on page 38. Go ahead, Ethan, loud, like you're yelling.
Of the people, facts and photographs of the people, places, discoveries of living things being discussed.
So, what we're reading today is a magazine article. Magazine articles tell facts, and they use photographs and other things of whatever they are talking about. We are also these third lessons, the third pieces. What we do on Thursdays will also include some kind of text feature or poetry. In this case, we have a text feature. What text feature are we going to be learning about and discussing how to read today? Smith?
Charts show information in columns and rows.
Good. So we're going to be looking at charts today, and then you're going to have some independent practice where you read a chart yourself. Those of you at home, I know most of you have already done it because I think I put the wrong date on it. So that's okay. You just won't have independent practice today. I think I put the wrong date on it, so there was a miscommunication. So that's okay. But those of you at school, you will do it today during the lesson. So we're going to be looking at charts today, all kinds of charts. Yes, Smith, quickly.
Will you show us the page just in case?
Yes,
Because I don't know if I've done it
I'm
yet
pretty
or
sure
not.
you have, but yes, I'll show it. When I pass it out, I'll show it to you guys to make sure that you know.
That's going to be my question also. Thank
Yes.
you, Smith.
Okay, so we're going to read this magazine article and we're going to read some charts. Remember, charts show information in columns and rows. The ways you can remember what a column and a row is. When you plant bushes, do you plant the seeds right on top of each other? You can just show me.
No.
Show me. No. Otherwise, only the top one's going to grow, and even then, it might not grow well because they're all stacked on top of each other. When you plant bushes, you plant them in a row. You plant one here, then one here, then one here, then one here. So rows go sideways. Now think of columns on a building. They go up and down. Otherwise, if it was sideways, would it hold the roof up? No, it wouldn't even touch the roof. It would only touch the ground. So columns, go up and down because the columns on a building go up and down, not sideways. So that's how you can tell what columns and what rows are. Okay, Smith, go ahead and read us the title and the author. Ethan, pay attention.
Putting Together the Pieces of the Puzzle by Eric Michaels.
Go ahead and read us the very first paragraph.
Crime scene investigators are the first people to examine the scene of a crime. They search for clues that will help the detectives later decide what probably happened and who might be responsible for it. It's hard work, but these experts are specially trained. They use the scientific method, a series of specific steps as they work.
Very good. So remember I said the scientific method, we call it a tool, but it's not a physical object that you hold in your hands. It is just a set of steps that scientists follow. Sometimes mathematicians follow them too, in order to come up with the answer to a question. Thank you, Smith. Go ahead and read next. Carla, read loud. You're going to read. Don't forget to read the subtitle and read all the way to the last sentence on page 39.
Yes, ma'am.
Read loud.
Survey the crime scene. It is important that nothing is disturbed before an investigation begins. So the first thing a crime scene investigator
Go slow, Carla. Carla, go slow. Read the whole word. What does that say? Investigator. So what is that word?
Investigator.
Investigator. There you go.
Investigators does a security the crime scene. This is protect it from
From being altered. Carla, go
Being
slow.
altered
Read the whole
is the way.
word.
The next step to simply observe the investigator.
Investigator.
description of the scene. It's just a forwarding of the scene. A photographic are taken.
Carla, you need to make sure that you're reading slow, okay? Because you're skipping some words and you're adding some words. So make sure that you're going slow so that you don't accidentally skip words or add words that aren't there. And then also you can if you go slow, you can take the time to read each piece of the word and put it together before you say it out loud, okay? We're all working on that.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So, when investigators come in, they have to secure the crime scene to make sure that nothing is disturbed. No evidence is taken or moved or changed so that the wrong clues might be found. If somebody comes in, if nobody secures the scene and somebody comes in who committed the crime and takes their cell phone that they left behind, well, that's going to make it harder for the detectives to figure out who did it. So crime scene investigators have to secure the scene first so that nobody can come on or leave from where they are. Then, once they've secured the scene, they just have to observe. They have to find things that look like they're out of place, or that they're broken, or that they're missing. Something that doesn't look right, and they have to take notes. They take pictures, they draw pictures, they take notes, they take video, they put things in bags to take with them, whatever. Now, let's look at this chart on the bottom of page 39. Read the directions with me as I read them out loud. Reading a chart. Read across each row to learn how common each type of fingerprint is. So, when we read a row, are we going side to side or up and down? When we read a row, are we going side to side or are we going up and down? Victoria? Side to side. Remember, rows are next to each other. Columns are on top of each other. So the title, first thing we need to do is we need to find the title of a chart or a table. In this case, the title is Types of Fingerprints. So if the title is Types of Fingerprints, what is this chart going to show us? What is this chart going to show us? Zadie?
Types of fingerprints.
Types of fingerprints. The title shows us this is what this chart, table, blank, whatever is going to tell us. So let's go across. The first type of fingerprint is called loops. Then if we go sideways, not up and down, that's when we see a picture of what that fingerprint looks like. Ethan, pay attention. Put them on my desk. You keep playing with them, you're going to have to figure out how to do lessons without a pencil. It's going to be really hard. We see what loops look like. They look like loops on your finger. So go ahead and look at your finger. Do your fingerprints look like the loops? Do they look like little lassos going across? Look closely. Keep that in mind. 65% of all people have loops for their fingerprints. So that means most people have loops because 65 is more than half. Now let's go down to the next row and we have whorls. Whorls is the next type of fingerprints that we're going to look at. So you shouldn't be looking at your fingerprints anymore because now we're back to the chart. The next row is whorls. Look at that picture. That's what they look like. We're going to look at our fingerprints at the end. So don't worry about your fingerprints because I realize we need to look at what each kind looks like and then you'll figure out which one you have. The next one is whorls. Whorls look like little circles surrounded by circles and circles and circles. So whorls are like this. Circle inside a circle, inside a circle, inside a circle, inside a circle, and so on. Loops are more like little loops. Better than this, but whatever. Surrounded by little loops. Then on the bottom row, whorls, 30% of all people have whorls as their fingerprints. That means about a third of all people have whorls. Then the last row, we have arches. Arches look like little hills on your finger piled on top of each other. Only 5% of people have arches. Which of these 3 fingerprints is the most common? Which of these types of fingerprints is the most common? Zari? Which is most common? Which one?
Loops.
Loops, because 65% of people have it. So the most people have loops. Thank you, Zari. What is the least common type of fingerprints? Which one do the least amount of people have? Smith?
Arches.
Arches, good. Only 5% of people. That means out of 100 people, if you gathered 100 people together, only 5 of them would probably have arches. So arches is the least common. Very good. Now that you know what all 3 types of fingerprints look like, look at your fingerprints. Do you have the loops? Do you have the whorls? Or do you have the arches? Now look closely, because sometimes you may think you have whorls, but you actually have loops. So look closely. You can pull your face shield up if you're at school to look. Once you figure it out, raise your hand. I'm not going to call on you just yet. I'm going to wait for everybody's hand to be raised. Ethan, put it on my desk. The pencil. The pencil in your hand. I can literally see it. Now you're lying to me, so that's an extra consequence. I can see the pencil in your hand. I'm not dumb. I have eyes. Once you've figured it out, raise your hand. Once I see everybody's hand, then I will call on you. Do you have loops, whorls, or arches? Once you've figured it out, put your hand in the air. Kingston and Ethan, have you figured it out? Ethan, have you figured it out? Okay, hands down. If you have loops, raise your hand. I have loops. Looks like, let's see, Victoria, what do you have? Are you sure they're whorls and not loops? Because sometimes loops look like whorls. You just have to see, is there like a little tail?
You mean
Okay, so that means out of 11 of us, 10 of us have loops, the most common. 1, Victoria, has whorls. I was looking last year and I realized one of my fingers actually has whorls and the rest of them have loops. But I can't remember which one it is now. So, very cool. Okay, so most of us do have the most common, which is not surprising at all because there's a reason it's the most common. One of us does have the second most common, and that's Victoria. Yes, sorry, quickly.
Some of my fingers have some different ones.
Yep, sometimes I guess that happens. Sometimes I did not know that happens, but sometimes it does. Okay, so now we've read that table. We know when we read a chart, we read the rows. The very top will have a title. The title tells us what that chart is about. Then what we will usually have is an indication. This is what each row is, and then on the side we'll have the title. This is what At the top it'll say this is what each column means. At the side it'll say this is what each row means. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn the page. And you should be looking at page 40. Yes, Kingston, quickly.
I think on my right middle finger.
You might have one that's different. Yep, that seems to happen. I didn't think it could, but I guess it does.
Probably.
Okay, so on page 40, you're going to read that whole first column all the way to the left. Zari. All the way to the left. Start with the subtitle, Protecting the Evidence. Start with that and then read that whole column. Go slow, read loud, and read the whole word before you say it. Don't just read the first couple letters. Read the whole thing. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Protecting the evidence. The crime scene investigator must protect evidence as it is gathered. After a piece of evidence is photographed and notes are taken, the evidence is put into a container. It is sealed and labeled to show where was it found. Fingerprints are mounted on cards or special plastic sheets. They will be compared later with those in police records.
Keep going.
After all the evidence is gathered, it's time for a final survey, or at least look around.
Not at least. What does that say? Not least. What does that say? Or a
last look around. This is to make sure nothing has been overlooked. When the investigator is sure that the search is complete, the crime scene is released. That means the other people can then into the area.
Good. Thank you, Zari. So this piece that Zari just read is all about how the evidence is protected. Because if they don't protect the evidence, well then it might get lost, or it might get ruined, or somebody may take it. And then it's harder to solve the crime because that clue is gone, or it can't be used because it was messed up. So it's also important not only to gather the evidence, but also to protect it, to make sure that it stays right, that it stays in good shape. Let's look at that first paragraph that Zari read, where it starts, the crime scene investigator must protect blah, 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 and then it ends with, they will be compared later with those in police records. So from that first little indentation, that space, to the word records before the next space. Make sure you're focusing on me and not the clock. The clock does not matter. The lesson is what matters. Let's look at that. Read the very first sentence, just the first sentence. Stop at the first paragraph. Michaela? Stop at the first period, not paragraph.
The next, searching for evidence.
Nope, we're not reading. You're not paying attention to what I just said. I said, well, let's look at what Zari just read. Just read the first sentence of that first paragraph that Zari just read. Not the second paragraph, that's the bottom part, after the second space called an indentation. You're looking at the first sentence after the first indentation and stopping at the first period. Go ahead.
After all the evidence.
The first paragraph, that's after the first indentation. Go.
The crime scene invention.
Try it. Don't look at me.
Investigator
If I tell you how to say it, then do you learn? There you go.
must protect evidence as it is gathered.
There you go. So that first sentence says, the crime scene investigator must protect evidence as it is gathered. That sentence is called focus. Don't worry about your masks. Focus. That sentence is called a topic sentence. A topic sentence is usually, not always, the first sentence of a paragraph. It tells you, hey, this is what this paragraph is going to be about. Everything else after is going to be a detail about this. So that means when you read that first sentence in this paragraph, everything that comes after is about how the evidence is protected. Do you agree with that? If you look at that very first paragraph, so just the words between those two indentions, are all of those sentences about how a crime scene investigator protects evidence as it's gathered? Are all of those about that sentence? I see some people looking around the room instead of actually looking at the sentences. Carla?
It is.
Are all of those other sentences sentences about what that first sentence says? Yes or no?
No.
No, they're not?
Wait, yes.
Yes. There you go. Usually, always a paragraph will have a topic sentence and supporting details. Usually, but not always, the first sentence in a paragraph is the topic sentence. In this case, it is. Everything else in that paragraph focus on me. Everything else in that paragraph is a detail about what the first paragraph, or what the first sentence says. Okay, thank you, Zari. Read next. See, everybody's going back in. So make sure you're following along, because if you're not sure where we are,
You're welcome.
that means you get a consequence. Ethan, read next. Pull your mask down.
Crime scene investigator.
That's not where we are. Victoria, on your book, can you point to it, show Ethan where we are, and then he can keep reading. But you're going to get a consequence. You have to follow along. Just show him your book and point to where we are.
Crime scene.
Loud.
A crime scene investigator.
That's not where we are. Okay, that means neither of you are paying attention. So, you will both get a consequence. Zari. Well, you just read, so I'll put you back in and pick somebody else. But you still have a chance. Aaron, please read.
After all the evidence is gathered.
Zadie, please read.
Searching for evidence.
Loud. Pull your mask down because you have your face shield on.
Searching for evidence. The next step is to search for evidence. Physical clues about the crime. This search is done carefully. Hairs and fibers from clothing are gathered. Objects at the scene are adjusted with special powder to make any fingerprints show up. Thin sticky tape is used to lift the prints off the object. Fingerprints are important pieces of evidence because they place people at the scene. No two people have the same prints.
Thank you, Zadie. So what I want you to do is I want you to look at what Zadie just read. What is the topic sentence? Which sentence in that paragraph that Zadie just read tells what the rest of the paragraph is going to be about? Which of those sentences is the topic sentence? That means all of the other sentences in that paragraph are about that one sentence. Once you think you found it, raise your hand. Zadie? I'm sorry, Smith?
The next step is to search for evidence, physical clues about the crime.
Very good. So in this case, the topic sentence was also the first sentence. Usually it is, but not every time. So yes, because the rest of the sentences in that paragraph are about searching for evidence. How they search for evidence, where they put it once they find something. Good. Okay, Zadie, keep reading just that first little short paragraph on page 41.
Presenting the findings. A crime scene.
Pull your mask below your chin for now. Make sure it's below your chin because it's kind of sliding up over your mouth.
Presenting the findings. Presenting the findings. A crime scene investigator may help others prepare for a court case for the crime. The investigator may also testify or speak about the evidence in court.
Good. So once these investigators find the evidence, they're not done. Because then they may have to come back and in a court case, they may have to say, well, I found this here and it was in this condition at this time on this day. So they're not done just once they find it. Then they turn it over to the detectives who then turn their information over to the people at court, the prosecutors, the lawyers. But they have to come back because lawyers don't really know about evidence. They don't know the science stuff. So the crime scene investigators may have to come back and explain the science stuff. Very good. Thank you, Zadie. Read next. Kingston. Loud. Pull your mask below your chin and read loud, almost like you're yelling. You're supposed to know where we are. If you don't know where we are, it's a consequence. Do you know where we are? You've already had 3 consequences for not following along. Do you know where we are? I can't hear you. Loud.
Being a crime scene investigator looks exciting on TV, but it takes time, skill, and a lot of scientific knowledge. If a crime scene investigator does the job well, it's likely that the crime will be solved. Then the case can be marked closed.
Very good. So, it looks exciting on TV. If you ever watch stuff like CSI or Law and Order or any of that stuff, it looks really exciting and like it takes like 30 minutes. But it doesn't actually take 30 minutes. Sometimes it can take days, weeks, months, or even years to find all of that information and to do all of that investigating. But as long as that crime scene investigator does their job well, that means they find the right evidence, they interpret it the right way, then usually the case can be closed. However, if they don't do their job well, they leave behind some evidence, or if they find all the evidence but they interpret it in the wrong way, that means they think it means something wrong without really thinking about it, then the case might not be closed. Okay, very good. Let's see, anything else before we start our independent practice? Okay, so now everybody listen, because you're doing the independent practice. Make sure that you read everything it says above the chart, then read the whole chart. Remember, this tells you what each column means. These bold parts are the titles for each column. So that means in the first column, everything underneath is going to be a kind of a mystery. Then the second column is going to be the number of students that have done that. Then the third column is the percent. So as you're looking across, that's what it'll tell you. The first one is what the mystery was. The second one was how many had solved that. The third is the percentage of students who had solved. So read the table carefully. Read the questions carefully. Read the directions and the information carefully. Go ahead. You have about 15 minutes to complete this. So once you finish, turn it into the red reading tray. It's black with a red thing on it, a red border. Make sure your name, number, and date is at the top. And then if you're done, then you can do math independent practice, daily precept, breakfast for your brain, front page of math homework, and then read.